Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ace 8.6. Well, we'll let it run fast for a little bit here. Probably just have to pause it soon. Or it paused itself. Okay. Yeah, we'll give Austria energy. Yeah, we'll want good relations with Saudi Arabia. Money for... No, thank you. I almost said yes. No, not to Colombia or whoever that was. Twin engine bomb bays have advanced. That's nice. Now, let's do seaport capabilities improve. Naval basing efficiency is nice, but what this also does is increases throughput for supplies, and that can be critical. And naval strike tactics, we're going to let that go. That's just getting up to the 36. And yes, they can have some energy. We have plenty. We're producing. Special Forces branch has advanced. Good. We are running out of 36 technologies, 1936 dated technologies. Yeah, let's do infantry activation. Even though we already have some units, we don't really have the technology. There we go. We can't build more of those. Hydrophones. Okay, good. Now if we're going to push ahead, let's do so with something that we want to be advanced with. Medium fuel tank research. That would be here. A bunch more 36, but let's tanks. And who are we? Oh, didn't we stop hydrophones? I thought maybe I just presumed. Okay, here we go. Okay. Spain, you want energy? You can have it as much as you want. We want you to win that war. I'm missing right now the opportunity to do the intervention. The intervention stuff, especially early on in Hearts of Iron 4, was way overpowered, way too much, and it's gotten better. One thing that was the most common interventionist elements was air power. In Spain or in China or other places is the one thing that we can't. We can lend lease aircraft to the to nations at war. What is yes, Turkey. No. And grand battle plan. Let's do that. And yes, we also got a little bonus there. And we have still another slot, so no. Let's do infantry unit combined arms. We have a bunch of bonus there from various technologies. Like I've said before, I'm not the most math inclined person, so I sort of gut feel, rolling artillery barrages, okay. I'm fairly well read and have an idea, so I sort of look at things like various elements that give bonuses to things like this, and do it in sort of a minor way. But you know, if you don't also put in some research, you won't really get much of a bonus, and you just sort of wait it out. So it's sort of a mix of things. I hope to better mimic history. And yes, I'm pausing it here again to talk about something. So it's maybe a year or two old now. Another YouTube thing on why Arab armies lose wars. And it was 10 or 15 minutes. It wasn't very long. And it was very insightful. And it goes to what I was sort of talking about here. You know, they look whether it's the Arab-Israeli wars, the Arab-Persian war of Saddam Hussein invading Iran after the fall of the Shah, where he had several months of almost uninterrupted advances, but they never got anywhere because the Iranians were in too much chaos to resist, but they just didn't have the ability to push to any critical areas. And looked at Egypt's a little bit. Egypt's going into the Aden War, or was it the Yemen War? I think it was Yemen. One of the two. Now I know these are a unified country now, sort of. They're in a civil war, so they're disunified. But and it just sort of basically sort of Egypt's Vietnam was sort of described as. And they looked at, and the author put together some U.S. reports and some different statements of it. In the Arab world, there is, and they also looked at Libya's intervention down into Chad and whatever, and this. The Arabs often complain that their equipment is out of date, but some of the cases their equipment is more advanced than their enemies. But with their equipment is they often don't understand their own equipment. And I mean by that is not that they don't know how to drive the tank down the road or aim the tank gun. They don't understand it working in a technical means, and they don't understand sort of the mechanical requirements of maintenance and keeping things running that way. And obviously this is a generalization, but it's they're given too high-tech of equipment, and the need for constant maintenance, and they're obviously being in deserts, generally speaking, in a extremely high maintenance area environment, and they just don't maintain their equipment well. So the sand and whatever is highly corrosive, an element to it, but so that they're given aircraft or tanks or whatever that need constant levels of maintenance, and they just culturally, and again, this has nothing to do with race, this is entirely to do with culture, and so there's always exceptions to this rule, and we'll get to that in a second, is that culturally they just don't understand the requirements of maintenance and keeping things up and how to fix things when they break and that kind of thing. That's part of it. Two is not necessarily, and this is not necessarily in order. There's another thing is most of these Arab countries are artificial. They are a lot of them, like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, came to power through military coups, so they don't trust their own military. Their military is factionalized. And so that they often promote into the key positions not the best people, or even let alone the qualified people. They promote into key positions up and down the line, not just as key generals, but all up and down wherever the line is loyal people. Loyalty is it. Loyalty is highly valued in there, but loyalty, and this goes into the artificial nation element of it, is often tribal. And so if say a battalion commander, major or whatever, will try to make sure his captains and his lieutenants are of his tribe within what was otherwise a regular national battalion. So all the key people he sort of trusts, and so he picks out and gets these sort of trustworthy people. And this is just at the battalion level. Now, he may never climb any higher because he's not maybe trusted enough by generals, because the generals are of a different tribe, but he's sort of gotten to his little clique, and so he promotes and makes sure he gets key people that he trusts, and so that these people are their competency level is unimportant to their position and why they've been given their position. That's part of it. Part of it gets back to the artificial nature of the nation, that the average soldier doesn't have an investment in the war and in dying for the war, because they often either see it as a aggressive war helping out a different tribe, clan, or group. We can see in this, didn't talk really about the Syrian civil war so much, but about Syria, it's the Alawite tribe or Alawite group, and they're sort of a different tribe, faction of Islam or whatever. And so the Sunni in there don't want to go to war for the Alawites, war in Lebanon or in Israel or whatever to what, make the Alawites richer? No, they're so they don't want to go die for this other group. We see that in not just in, well, we can see that in the Shia Arab South in Iraq and the Sunni Arab Center, but even within it's within the different tribal, within Sunnis and Shias, within the different tribal groups. So the artificial elements of the nation is that the soldiers don't have the motivation to move forward. Now, along with all of this, your value in the Arab world is your skills, and where, and we'll get to the sort of the mirror option, opposite of some of this, and you can probably guess, is that, like Al-Sisi, he wrote, I forget what it was, a paper that you can go find it on the current president of Egypt, under his Wikipedia page that he wrote during when his schooling in the U.S. War College, and he speaks English, and he mostly speaks through a translator because he wants to come off better. But he has his training outside, but because, and I'm just using him as an example, is they get a technician, well, whether it's like an NCO technician or an officer type, will get a training, get knowledge, and then not pass it on because he's valuable, because he has it and others don't. So they don't voluntarily want to train others. And along with this is not just technical knowledge, but operational knowledge. They don't share it up and down the line well or at all. They, order in advance, but they don't necessarily communicate well why they're advancing, what they're advancing against, even if they know it, and if they spot the enemy, information in the battlefield doesn't flow well up and down the chain of command. This is what various training elements have reported about Arab armies. So this is why Arab armies often lose. It's a cultural thing. And again, we're talking about generality, so I know I have some Arab viewers, or at least people view from the Arab world. I'm not trying to insult you or anything. It's just, this is what this report was, and I think it's rather accurate. So, translating into why I sort of jumped into that is the idea of some of these operational technologies, and looking at when I look at manuals and training programs and give various bonuses to Germany is because they are trying to spread and disseminate some of that. We already have sort of national pride, territorial pride elements, with why some nations get certain bonuses within Hearts of Iron. But these operational doctrine elements that I think are really good is it shows that why is Germany better than, say, Poland? And again, I don't know Poland here, but I believe Poland, the quality of training, the level of all of that just wasn't up to Germany. I could be wrong, and it could just be pure overwhelming, but more German units. But I really do believe the NCO's training unlike all the movies you see, especially during World War II, they always make out the German soldiers are just a robotic blah blah. Actually, the U.S. soldiers were more soldiers and officers training were more conditioned to obey orders on the battlefield as directed than the German command. The German command was very much you were given your directives and your objectives, and you were supposed to figure it out, kind of thing. And whether that's at a battalion level or at a platoon level. And so it was, again, NCOs had much more freedom of action in the German army than in most armies, including the American army. At the time, to figure out how to prosecute the war in front of them. Sure, and that's not saying the NCO tells the lieutenant or the captain to go to hell. No, it's just, you know, the missions are given to the people at the certain levels, and those people are sort of, because of their extensive training and as the war went on experience, thought to be able to take, oh, well, you're supposed to go take that hill. Oh, okay, well, we're going to look at the hill because every hill is slightly different, you know, different vegetation, different shape or whatever, and then figure out the best way to take that hill, you know, and whether that's a hill that's a battalion is taking it or a hill that a squad is taking it. It was sort of presumed that those people doing it would know, where if you look at the U.S. Army training, including the stuff that I went through in the 90s a little bit, they're much more into giving more descriptive. You will advance up the left flank of the hill. Well, that may be because they're planning on putting the overwatch covering the right flank, meaning, you know, that's the suppressive firepower machine gun, so you're not firing at your own troops or something like that. But it's a, you know, it's a more commanded organization element that is sort of trained in with the U.S. Army, at least in the, because I never actually made it into the Army, just things back in the 90s I didn't want to at the point under Clinton. But so I got some training through our ROTC program, quite a bit, fair much of that. But I never actually made it into there, so I never actually experienced it in combat, so it may end up being very different in the modern experience of how, at a platoon level and company level that I was sort of being trained at, how it would react and function in combat. It may be very different than the training, but that was sort of the training I was given. So this is the kind of thing of why Germany won a lot of this stuff, especially like in France. Because with fighting against the French, theoretically, and often, in fact, it did happen, you could have the head of the French army or a French general or somebody say over the telephone to a battalion or company commander, do X, you know, charge there, hold that line or retreat or whatever. And you go, yes, sir, I'll do it as soon as I get the written orders, sir, and hang up the phone. It didn't matter. The orders only mattered that were written. Now, he could decide to follow the orders, but because of the French official military code is that you were to follow and do written orders. Partially, my understanding is that they were afraid that people introduced faulty communication, and of course, you don't necessarily know General Gamelin or whoever's voice is on the phone, you know, who claims it to be, is giving you the orders. So, and now I'm not saying they would routinely disobey the orders, but that was the, you know, if it's the right person, but they were supposed to wait for written orders, and that slows up your operational tempo. So, you know, that's sort of the rigidity of the French system, and why it can be, and why this is for us war gamers here and trying to simulate the war, is who in 1940 is the greatest military land power on earth, and it is clear, France. But they get their ass kicked by Germany, which, you know, well, the Soviet Union ultimately kicked Germany's ass, so, you know, it went through stuff, so it is Germany second or third, and then we got the U.S., who at this time was nowhere near the great power that it becomes. You know, so it's because not, you know, how well the tanks run, and I think French tanks as a mechanical machine ran well, meaning they didn't overly break down. They weren't, you know, poorly made. They were sort of poorly designed from a human interaction standpoint. You know, the one-man turret versus the three-man turret, that was most assuredly a poor design choice, but I think they ran well. And so, you know, it wasn't, you know, and a lot of other things. French artillery, they had a lot of outdated artillery left over from World War I and whatever, but it wasn't necessarily that it was, you know, so bad. It was they lost, in my opinion, as a command and control element. Well, how do you simulate creating infantry divisions that have, you know, equal number of soldiers theoretically? I would just it's not the case, but if they had equal number of soldiers, equal number of rifles, equal number of machine guns, equal number of artillery pieces, and well, one thing which we have here is, of course, your command, how good your commander is, but is how to simulate the difference between having a bigger, better French army, and then how does the German army defeat it so handily? Well, part of it comes down to various operational techniques. And as I play some more and more of Hearts of Iron 4, I like the element of exclusivity. We haven't researched either one of these two. One does more defensive, the other does more toughness. But you can only do one or the other. You can't do both. If you start, whoever gets the first thing, it kills the other one. Now, I think the format that, and they've admitted enough that what's sort of done in the initial release is just basic level stuff that they want to look at more. So it's maybe a little too tightly constrained down the four different doctrine line trees, if you will. Now, some doctrines, you know, individual ones, show up in multiple trees, but sort of, you know, is the grand battle plan exclusive to Blitzkrieg doctrine, which, you know, Blitzkrieg is definitely combined warfare doctrine, and sort of are the American, the West, the British, I don't know, term for what the Germans were doing. You know, this is sort of the great big French orchestrated battle, where this is the more fluid battle, if you will. And the Schurplunk doctrine is, in a way, very much different than the grand battle doctrine is that, at least as my understanding is, the Schurplunk can be simply, and might sort of work with the grand battle plan, is that you have a concentration of force at one point, but as more that it's as much or more, as I see it, as a to attack in multiple places, find where the enemy is weakening, or you have a weak spot in it, and then at that point, and then sort of as a fluid thing, create that as your Schurplunk, as your point of concentration and power to overwhelm locally there, and then burst through, and then can, which theoretically I would presume grand battle plan and deep battle doctrine could be the same, but meaning your grand battle could be to achieve the deep battle doctrine, but it sort of is the design. The deep battle doctrine is designed to do sort of what they did in 1940, is not to defeat everything everywhere, but is to drive deep into the enemy's rear, and in such a way that causes the collapse of the front line, normally immediately, because the front line reacts to it. But even if the front line units held, like they might hold in the forts, but in a non-fortified area, is that ultimately they get cut off from supply. They get surrounded. You know, it just functionally it messes them up. So, sort of the challenge of how to do some of this stuff. But this gets sort of this long sort of tangent pause. I didn't mean to make it as long as I did, but it's why Germany won comes down to what is, we find generally speaking in the West. France, I presume after World War II, it recovered from its rigidity problems, but you see in Britain, you see in America, the ability to communicate up and down the chain of command, the situation. So, goals and objectives, plus communicate up and down conditions of the battlefield, the type of enemy you're facing, two guys both radio up. We're under intensive fire, whether it's from artillery or machine guns or whatever. Okay, but that's not useful to the upper command, because neither of the upper commands are there, and each guy's making intensive fire, and especially if they haven't been in a lot of fire. What's intensive to the two guys? Is it one guy is under 6 heavy machine guns, and the other guy is under 2 light machine guns, and they both seem intensive, to their battalion. Where if you can report, we're under fire from 6 heavy machine guns, and the other guy gets a report, we're under fire from 2 light machine guns, if they could identify it, not necessarily that they could, but the volume of fire or something like that they can identify it, well, then that's useful information to realize where there's strong enemy and where there's weak enemy. And if you're sort of going with one, and what, as you see, is once we get to it, and if you've watched the earlier series, I'm often the one that wants to let the battle stall where there's the heavy resistance and push where there's the light resistance, and flow like water around the enemy, instead of following my battle plan. My advanced previous instruction is to flow in and around the enemy as best I can. So, but maybe you feel, well, we need reinforcements where there's the strong fire, because where there's the weak fire, they can take care of it themselves. That's also a legitimate, and depends on the situation and the scale of the war, how you want to deal with it, and maybe you're just simply, where do we put the artillery fire? Do you put the artillery fire against the 6 machine guns or the 2 machine guns? If you're fine with the battlefield stalling against the 6 machine guns, but you want to push it where the light machine guns were, that's where you put your artillery fire. If you want to have both fronts advance, you put your artillery fire against the more machine guns, so it equals, and you just tell both of your commanders, the one without the artillery support, just take the casualties and move forward, you're ordered to, and the other one advance as soon as the artillery going off, which is suppress the truly the heavier machine gun fire. That kind of stuff is what sort of the Germans did well, and that's one reason why I really love Hearts of Iron. I haven't played Strategic Command from Matrix Games, their new version. I've seen some of it played by them. It's going back to the old chip unit warfare, but it doesn't seem to have the doctrine influence and these other things. It has, this unit is a 9-6 and fighting against a 0-1 or something like that kind of elements, but it doesn't add in the doctrines and all these other elements to make things up. Yeah, most of you already knew that, but I just felt like sharing it, and it made me think, okay, give them money. No. Yes. And give them money. Yes. Italy. Yes. And we have another pause already. Okay, military police has advanced too far now, so we'll stop that. And do we have another one? Armor plate thickness. Okay. Well, and yes, I totally agree with many of you who are long-time viewers and why I'm still playing this. God, look, I'm part of the reason I'm playing this is because there's enough viewers to want to play it, but part of the reason I really wanted to play this game was because of the improvements a little bit with TRE that I sort of know about it, but I still hadn't played my own mod. You know, the improvement elements of it. Plus, I wanted to see the new and exciting elements coming out of Units of the Third Reich and German graphical augmentations. I wanted to play it just to play this because this is still a really great game. I just really hope someday all of this great stuff ends up in Hearts of Iron 4, which will be, once that happens, a truly superior game. That's a few of you commented that the battle seems simplistic. Well, actually, the mechanics, and again, I'm not the best person to either explain it or know it, but the actual battle mechanics are more detailed from what I understand, and I've had it explained to me a couple of times of sort of how it is, but it's hard for me to remember and explain it back to you. But that, you know, the actual battle calculations are done in a more advanced way than Hearts of Iron 3, but you as the player aren't necessarily seeing it, so it might seem more simplistic, especially when all you're sort of encouraged to do is, oh, draw, you know, front line here along the border, draw a stop line here, battle plan done, war starts, go, and you see your units move forward and take territory and eventually take Poland. And to me, yeah, that's entirely simplistic. That part is entirely simplistic. If you're playing in, you know, and I'm maybe doing some multiplayer in both 3 and 4, maybe next month or maybe before then, I don't know. That depending on how much we're willing to stop the game, obviously not for me to sit and talk like this, but how the battle flows, we may have to draw some of the battle lines. But when you're playing it on your own, if you're just doing something so simplistic that you're just drawing, you know, front line, you know, your start line, your stop line, and then allow that, yeah, that for your interaction into it is simplistic. That is for sure. But the actual mechanics of how this unit attacks this unit are better. They're not necessarily with all the very rich detail that we are finding in this version of Black Ice, but they are there. Let's do naval bombers. And so as, oh, again, our blueprints are being stolen. Oh, we stole some British blueprints. Well, great. We have plans that let us improve our abilities of our African Army recruitment to level 1, giving the following effects. Colonial infantry. Well, good. Where? Here. We don't control any parts of the territory yet. Now, that's why we can't research it, but I just want to see, do we actually have the ability to build? No. I don't think, because playing the last one, but it will fire events at the right time that will allow construction of colonial units when and if we control like Nairobi or other places like that. So cool to have, not useful at the moment. In that, well, I want to look at intel. Okay, we're going to go up to counter-espionage to full level there. Alright, we got 48 extra. We're going to, it's not a lot of extra, but let's go for not as much as Britain. We want to focus there on Britain, but we're going to put a secondary into the US. And pause. Okay, what do we have here? Okay, yes. Reichspartag, Reichsparty Day der Einheit. What is, Party Congress? What is the... Each one had a focus. I did not cover these because Black Ice already sort of did. The evils of both division. Rally, the Rally of Honor is what this one I guess is. Okay. Again, something someday I'm gonna do, and I might even do it for the early versions of 4, just because they don't cover that. So this is sort of the big party rally effects. We will get total of 4 industrial areas, or industrial capacities IC. Hurts Soviet Union relations, but oh well. Lose supplies, lose ICs percentage until November of this year, so not that long, but definitely ultimately a and obviously notice, well, let's quickly, before we get the effects of that, you can see that we have appeased them going on, but still with areas that aren't heavily covered by the SA. Again, the SA is being useful. Slightly more revolt risk, so that should national revolt risk down by 4, so that should help take more money out of us. But okay, good. Okay, Pertino, I'm sorry, this gentleman's name, meeting on the 16th of September. The Romanian politician, basically that's George Pertinu, met with the German Führer Adolf Hitler in Berlin. Should we make the offer that Germany would supply Romania with weapons and will guarantee their borders? In exchange, they will strengthen our commercial ties and will not allow the Soviet army to enter Romania. Okay. Right now, just, and because you're watching here, you get to know this. There was this meeting obviously did happen. The Germany was trying to secure its relations with Romania, to mainly for the oil, and wanted to bring them. Obviously, the Axis hasn't even formed. Italy is still a country in opposition here. So we're looking at that. Hitler's trying to get this. Romania is looking powerful at this time. Again, I say looking, not necessarily is. And it sometime before this had a fascist government that fell, and this is sort of a moderate government who wasn't wanting to become an ally of the Nazis at this time. So we can, because it doesn't hurt us, we're going to make the offer. And I know because I coded it, does sort of, well, I guess it does hurt our relations a little bit. Just -3 is, and we could do nothing. Is AI Romania will always make the historical decision of no. So you can have other plans. If you put the human AI, if you add a human playing, so like if you have Third Reich events playing, and you can, and you're playing as Romania, and you wanted to jump on board with the Axis right now, you could have said yes to this and start getting Romania in the Axis early on and not lose territory later. So to Hungary and Bulgaria and the Soviet Union. So you could jump onto the German bandwagon earlier if you as the player want to do it, but this won't. This is just sort of setting up a long chain of events dealing with Romania and Germany's attempt to bring it under its control. Ludendorff. Won't go into too much. You've probably seen this before in my other series. He was the number 2 sort of general under Hindenburg. in World War One. Very big hero. He was the guy who was sort of involved in the putsch that Hitler tried to do in, see, now all green, tried to do in 23. He disassociates himself from the Nazi Party, but continues to try to do an extremist right-wing party, and pushes that forward. Never really gets very far. This is his magazine that promotes that up, and it's still going at this time. It's one of the parties that are, and I don't think it has any like seats actually in the Reichstag or anything like that, but I may have, it was sort of a Munich-based party, may have seats in some local governments, but don't know right offhand. But it's one of the other parties that still exist at this time. It's, well, it's sort of fallen apart, but the magazine is still out there promoting it, partially because he's such a popular person. He's right-wing. Hitler couldn't shut him down. Okay, we will no longer have a restricted resource. I think that's a I think that's a engine problem. I think the new industrial zone will appear on the map in at least one IC province in your nation's core under control and without an existing strategic resource. So somewhere, I could have had this map. Oh, we got a strategic resource. I don't know. Which one, where? It could be that one. I don't know. Okay. Air bases for West Prussia. Yes, we want to do that. And they've hopefully did it in red. You want to move them to the top. Now, if you notice, because I haven't been producing, these things have gone to, I think they started at like 8 ICs, and they sort of shrunk down because they are up a little bit more. Yeah, we could build it, but notice what we've got here, almost ready to clip through, which will make these things ultimately build faster, cheaper, better. I think these things sort of readjust the calculations, and these should pop through, which should really get those going fast. And we're going to do the same thing as we did before, which, yeah, we're going to do the full divisions. And yep, they'll be down in the bottom. Down here, like 8.8. So yeah, they're increasing a little bit, and they sort of fall back under things, but whatever. Well, let's take a quick look at what we're looking at here. Okay. No, that's more. There we go. At least some to actually send in reinforcements. These will pop really soon. Okay. Italy. It's that, and Spanish. Cancel. Okay. Oh, pause. Okay, submarine torpedo tubes, advanced long-range submarine classes to orbit. Year date. Oh, that is what we want to do now. Yeah, since it's a 35 technology, let's get that. Researching. And now that that's zeroed out there, and that's moved through that. And like I say, that's about ready to pop. All those. Just a little bit of wastage just to keep this green. And what does Romania want? No, no fuel. No Netherlands, whatever that is. And rare materials. Yes, I am maybe our friend via Japan. No. Give them money. Yeah, we want to continue good relations. Yes. Okay, deep battle doctrine, as we were sort of talking about not so long ago, is advanced. And so I sort of kind of like the to some degree exclusivity, and even if it's not exclusive, I sort of like the idea of, how do I put this? Prerequisites in some elements of it, like the deep battle doctrine may be prerequisites of certain levels of motorization, that type of thing. But also, I could see that if you take a Blitzkrieg type doctrine or a Scherplunk type doctrine or something like this, and not necessarily because of the way some of the doctrines could work between mass attack, human wave, you know, because grand battle plan may be, again, an overall distinction for some of this stuff, but something that could theoretically, but where human wave, that, and just because, hey, it's combat with, it reduces it, and if that's all you're talking about doing, which all I think, well, it does some other stuff too, but it can, you know, vary it down. Maybe you don't allow that with that because they wouldn't be doing the same type of tactics. Though of course you might have a different doctrine that would reduce your combat width. Because combat width can just simply deconflicting, and if you know sort of what that is, on the battlefield within a narrow space, so you're not having, you know, traffic accidents, if you will, too many people using the same road, but same lanes of attack. Better, so you know, friendly fire or whatever. You're not stepping on each other's toes a little better, so that you might sort of kind of balance it out. Or you might have, if you're Blitzkrieg, you can only do, for every 3 levels of Blitzkrieg, you can only do 1 level of human wave. You know, so you get some of these benefits, but you can't. You'll never equal it out, because if you get you know, you max out here, you'll never be able to max out here, kind of thing, or something like that. That's maybe a little more fluid than what is in Hearts of Iron 4, but a little more restrictive than what we have here, I think might be the best. Okay, let's see if there's any 37 technologies here. Yes. Supply throughput would be nice. Okay, Brazil, no. No for fuel. Okay, Hauptamt Ordnungspolizei. After centralizing the German police in mid-36, the SS and police leaders streamlined their regional organization of the police. In 1936, Heydrich and Delug, I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. I normally don't hear it, I just read it. Sort of a rounded face guy. Appointed regional representatives called inspectors of the order police, Inspector der Ordnungspolizei, whatever, IDO. From 1939 until 1945, this command commanded all of the personnel and units respectively of the order police in the region in which they were assigned. Okay. Form the ORPO. No need. We're going to assign it. We're going to form it, I should say. Okay, now, what did there was an OOB loaded there. Okay, there we are. Wow. Don't think well, maybe some of this was in the version that I played. Yeah, it was. Some of this was. Okay. But Kesselring should not command it. let's go rank. Normally I do most of this off camera, and I think you'll thank me for doing most of this off camera because it just eats up a lot of time, and but I want to just I want Kesselring out, and I want to put a good person in charge of it. And if you're wondering what I'm doing is and I went in and I through TRE I added a bunch of police generals. A bunch of them are sort of late war, so you won't see them now. But I'm looking for a police general. I almost complained again about one general here until I went and looked him up, and it may seem overly anal retentive to you or OCD, and it may be a little bit. Okay, see, here we go, Orpo. Orpo. I keep putting an extra R in there. That's why I added a bunch of these guys here. They get the SS trait because the generals were SS. And so I'll just scroll down to see if there's any more criteria. They're not necessarily very good unit commanders, but then again, you're not using them to command battle units in the front line. Yes, some of the skills here, I forget which one I forget which at what level gives what bonuses that does so, but let's see. I guess they're both the same. We'll give it to him. Well, I'm gonna give it to Dalig. Is he here yet? And so one of the generals that was put in the Air Force order of battle is about ready to complain. Yeah, there he is. And he's actually going to be better for it because he's a quartermaster, so let's promote him up. We'll put him in charge of it. One of the air, I think he's up here. There's two of this guy now. This guy, I thought, that's an army uniform he's wearing. So I thought it was the wrong guy. So I looked him up. Wanted to do that before I complained about it. But to find out that that is presumably the right guy, sort of smallish picture, but there's several pictures. He was sort of like Kesselring, or particularly Walter Wever, who was an army officer until, I don't know, 34 or something, and he converts over to the Luftwaffe. So there's a bunch more photos of him in army uniform. I found one photo of him in his Luftwaffe uniform, but it had a a writing right across his face or something, so it wouldn't have made a good image. Web address or something. I understand why people do it. I mean, I don't think they really care if you sort of use a photo that they put up in this little small form, but some of the stuff is for collector purposes, that they're selling the photos, real original historical photos that they're trying to sell online. And what they don't want people to do is to get a good high resolution copy of it and then make fake period photos. There's a huge collector's market, and I many years ago decided not to be part of it because I got fooled by some, actually I was told, rather good fakes. No, it wasn't lots of money. It was pitiful amounts of money compared to some things, but I just sort of got, oh man, I couldn't tell, so I just decided, I'm not going to collect Nazi memorabilia. Now I collect firearms, including a lot of World War II firearms. But it's more expensive to make fakes of firearms than it is to just get the original ones. So, and I don't collect things that are supposedly like rare and super, this is Hermann Goering's pistol. Well, okay. I mean, obviously I wouldn't be able to afford that. But even something that's super special because somebody can go in and change the serial numbers or change whatever. So I stay away from, you know, anything that's that. But just, you know, World War II rifles and pistols, it costs more money to fake them than it does just to buy them, you know, original stuff. Okay, defensive positions. So like on these photos, where's defensive? Oh, it's up here. Yes, okay. So that's some of the reasons some of these places are put their web address across the front of them. This is not necessarily, depends on what it is, that they're trying to keep somebody like me or other modders from repurposing or using the historical image. Sometimes it is. They're trying to keep other people from using it, even a small little thing. But a lot of it is just that they don't want to have somebody have a high resolution of it, that they can then put it on a, you know, make a photographic thing and then sort of antique it and sell it as an original photo. So that's sort of what they're trying to do with some of that stuff. Just so you know, and don't buy things off the web. You know that. There's supposedly some good sellers there, but I don't know. Okay, the Carpathian Deutsches Partei. Go over here. This is a subgroup of the SDP. They're out in this part, the Carpathian Mountains region. Again, basically Germans left over from the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. We can decide to support them or not. If we decide to support them, again, he's fashionable, he likes the Hitler mustache. We will potentially, or well, it depends if you set up the Slovakia as, you know, a puppet state, and instead of that has to happen instead of having Hungary take it over or something, or you take it over fully. If those conditions obtain later on, we'll get at least one unit out of that. So yes, for 30 whatever money we'll do with that. Okay, Fleet Auxiliary Doctrine. So just if you want a sort of a small, weakish internal security SS unit at some time. Okay, we just triggered that. At some time in the future, that's what you want to do if you don't care about getting the little German and foreign lands SS unit, then don't bother with that. It's all on what you want to do. But that does have, like I say, a positive effect at some point. Oh, see all those things just all over the place? Okay, now, I'll just slow this up anyways. We just had a bunch of factories hit. Our factories are going to get cheaper to build now, and since most of those factories, because those are the ones I made sure were at the top, were in places that had heavy industrial centers, because we'll get the maximum bang out of it for a buck as quickly as possible. So take a little while for them to go from red to fully green. I get why, especially if we were playing a multiplayer game and not wanting to pause for a long time, why you want to just sort of click here and then plus out a bunch of factories just to sort of make it easier. But, well, that does need one. Yeah. So I think that heavy industry was added later. Okay, that's still building. And I would rather focus on places that Okay, I think we got most of that stuff. Okay, now these are nice to have, but haven't really gotten anywhere. Cycle all these to the bottom. There's a lot there, and upcoming. There we go. 1, 2. There we go. Bunch more industrial capacity, and they'll get even cheaper as these come in to build newer ones. But like I say, I think I interrupted myself a few times. I really like the idea of shipyards and whatever, so we could... Oh, no, we don't want to give you money for fuel. No. Because I like the separation out. I like the separation out of military equipment and naval production from other ICs. I think that's a good thing. Okay, now this is very important. This is something you've got to understand. This is the 4-year plan. The 4-year plan, however you want to say it. I can't stress enough that this is a big economic boom, production boom to Germany. It was historically, and it is in this game. A couple of things about this. And this can affect how you play or your play style, what you want to do. If you know you're going to, hey, because I've watched the people play, you know, 'cause mostly I don't have time to sit and watch through a long series, but, you know, I'll watch for 5 minutes and skip 10 minutes, 20 minutes ahead, watch for a couple of minutes, and just sort of see what's going on with some other people, the way they do things, and just try to learn both play tactics and how to do this job of speaking to you. You know, so like if you're getting ready to go to war, I don't know, with Denmark or the Netherlands or something like that, or you know, you were planning on invading Estonia already, you might not want to do this because the 4-year plan will end in approximately 4 years. It did historically. It never went away. The 4-year plan never went away. In the sense that all the organizations were still there, but the shall we say emphasis and which would mean allocation of labor, allocation of industrial capacity to expand, that all changed after the war started. But the agencies, you know, anything that happened was still there. So it was still sort of ongoing, but it's sort of, if you will, to some degree zombie-like ongoing, meaning it didn't end, but it was just still there and going. So I end this, if you're at peace, so if you're going for a long peace, and I'm not going to do it on this series, though it did cross my mind, of what would have happened. You know, obviously things change, and this isn't necessarily realistic, but what would happen if we wait till 42 or 43 to go to war, you know, the big war? You know, what would happen? Build up, you know, the Kriegsmarine, you know, plan the Z plan, and have a lot of heavy battleships to go after the British with, and have a huge air force and a huge army, you know, because you can imagine building up to 42 or 43 without any war going on. Man, if we have the manpower, and we could really have Germany rocking and just come out of the gates and go crushing, it would be an interesting exercise to do that. And that's sort of historically what was planned. Poland was just going to be a small regional war, and then peace was going to be generally kept in Europe. That was the plan. So, and what would have happened would have been another 4-year plan. It would have historically, I'm sure that when the 4-year plan was up, they would have started another 4-year plan. Is, you know, the second 4-year plan or the 10-year plan or whatever they might have called it, I don't know, but they would have started another one. And obviously some of the same agencies and people would be recycled into the new thing. But I am this effect in approximately 4 years, which is approximately in 1940. maybe slightly earlier than 4 years, maybe 3.5 years or something. So if you play through peace all the time, eventually the 4-year plan will end. If you go to war, the 4-year plan wins. Now, the 4-year plan was a preparation for war. It is a warfare act, but it is an act designed to increase primarily, well, I would say primarily, if one thing, it was to increase the availability of raw materials for the industrial effort. And, I forget which mineral it was, but there was some large mineral deposit somewhere in Germany. They knew what it was. The German government tried to get some of the major mining firms to do it. The mining firm says it's cheaper to import, and this is such a contaminated or low quality, intermixed with other earth compounds or whatever, wasn't very pure, and so it could maybe almost be run as at a profitable business, but to set up the mining operation, because that costs a lot to set it up, it would take forever, or if ever, and the way markets may go, to ever get any profit out of this. So no company was able to, or was willing to go in and start, sort of an open pit mining, or whatever it was, for this one very useful and very critical mineral. I forget what I don't think it was bauxite. Maybe it was. I don't know. It was something. It's unimportant to the story of what it is, or the point of what it is. But it was something that was just marginal. But it was fairly large deposits. But like I say, it was intermixed. Well, the 4-year plan was part of what these sort of triggered each other, is to go in and have a government sponsored, owned enterprise to start mining the mineral, set it up there, because yes, you could import it from, I think the same thing was mined out of Morocco or something like that, but that would be cut off if there was a war. So it was an effort to get domestic production of this going, and so price didn't matter, but general, and I don't know how efficiently the factory was run under the 4-year plan, whether the actual, once you got it going, the actual cost of producing it to then selling it to the needed German manufacturers or not. I don't know if they did that at a profit. And also, the other thing is Germany was, even at this period, was short on foreign exchange currency. So buying stuff outside of Germany was costing, its reserve of pounds or gold or francs or other sort of currencies. But if they did it internally, it only cost Reichsmarks, in which they could print as much as they wanted to. If they print too much, it causes inflation, hyperinflation. But print just the right amount, you can keep printing with only minor inflation, and you're fine. So government could produce it. So the government wanted to do this, and that part of what comes under the 4-year plan. So, but that's sort of the primary focus is raw materials, but the secondary focus is to expand industry that's useful for war production, meaning tank factories, aircraft factories, shipyards. It's meant to expand those, as opposed to concentrating on tank production itself, meaning have your excess labor build an extension to the current factory, or build a factory next door or in another town or whatever, build a more factory, as opposed to putting the labor into having from 1 shift a day to 2 shifts or 3 shifts a day producing tanks. It's sort of the emphasis on producing a lot of tanks now, or producing a lot of tank factories. Well, the 4-year plan, definitely they produced tanks and aircraft during it, absolutely, and it was sort of part of that. But it was primary and or secondary focus was to increase the ability to produce things. Well, that sort of, in my mind, goes away once you're worried about, we need to produce as many tanks as we can fast. Now, yes, we may be expanding factories, and they continue to do so, but that is sort of secondary to current needs of production kind of thing. So I think you understand me there. So that's why if you go to war anytime before the 4-year plan is up, and that's even to go to war over Switzerland, or go to war, any sort of local war, 4-year plan goes bye-bye, and you can't get it back. So in 4 years, it goes bye-bye. If you go to war, once you get it, goes bye-bye. Now, so if we had had a quick war, come and gone, you could still start the 4-year plan. 2, or 3 actually. This event will do it. This event put Goering in charge of your economy. Goering looks like he sucks as being in charge of your economy, and he sort of does. But if you remove at any time during the 4-year plan's in action, remove Goering from in charge of it because he was in charge of the 4-year plan, the 4-year plan goes bye-bye and you can't get it back. So you have to put up with Goering in charge of the 4-year plan because he was in charge of the 4-year plan. This isn't Third Reich events. What if we all made the most spectacular, super best decisions that we could have ever made? No, this is dealing with reality. So if you're going to have the 4-year plan, we're doing what the 4-year plan was, as sort of I've interpreted it. So this is what you get. And so money is almost immaterial. What you gain costs you some resources to sort of kickstart this stuff. But you'll notice steel refineries, rare extraction and improvements, Schacht will be removed. Hermann Goering is replacing him there, so you need to do this. If you just want a good, and I do think Schacht was better at understanding economies than Goering ever was, you just want to continue to run your economy, just leave it there. But so we're going to, of course, go for this. Oh, the lose industrial capacity, that again is that engine problem. They're both gains. In both places you gain, in Potsdam and Kreutz. You gain as well as in other places. Don't believe any of those lose. As you can see, Dusseldorf, it says lose to Dusseldorf here. Let's see what it has there now. We'll should see it jump by 2. May stop the one that's already in production. I don't know. You can go beyond the 10 allowed via events, but you can't click and build beyond 10. The other thing is also you get all of this, plus there are other events as time goes on that will give you, they might have some costs, but they will give you benefits during the 4-year plan. So it isn't a zero-sum game. This is part of what is replacing all of those things that I took away at the beginning of TRE. You remember that? Big long list. Lose here. Most of those are lose, lose, lose. Some of those, whether they say lose or gain, some of them are gain, but most of those are lose. This is part of the element to put it back. And since there wasn't, since I understood the game, like for the amount of energy and the amount of crude oil and the amount of metal in Germany, there is no in-game mechanism to build more, expand the mining, obviously. And we do take coal mine, gain coal mine level 2 and Seton and whatever. We have, and I say we because a few of my contributors have helped me with some of this stuff. We have taken advantage of some of the black ice mechanics that Black Ice has added to it, but there was none in the base game. So I took the sort of levels of resources were needed to produce the German army that they sort of play balanced out, is sort of taking it as what the 4-year plan expanded the resources into over this time period, as opposed to what was there at the start in 36, because there was no mechanism or events that really properly covered this. So that is why I took away a lot. That is why you're getting back a lot. So, and Schacht's resignation. Goering was appointed, but members. Okay, and as Schacht continues to be president of the Reichsbank for a considerable amount of time, but he loses his primary thing. It's the only photograph I could find of Schacht with Hitler. He has his eyes closed in the photo, and there's his signature. So he continues as part of the Nazi hierarchy, but no longer the guy in charge of the economy. So now we have, just to look at it, Hermann Goering. So you're losing money. That's sort of Hermann Goering, personal lavish expenses, plus his carelessness in not necessarily corruption, but lavish expenses, maybe sort of the corruption element, but his using the money to expand all those industries, whether they're profitable or not. It gets into that, and not necessarily doing it efficiently even. Like I said, I don't know whether that one mine I used as an example, whether that actually produced and sold stuff efficiently enough, or whether they just, well, we need to employ more Germans. Hey, send them over here and have them work here. Give them something to do, kind of thing. I don't know that, because I have a low opinion of government-run programs into their actual efficiency, because they have other goals than profitability. So that's sort of that. Land organization, you get to hit for it while he's in here, but it doesn't really matter because we're not going to go to war while the 4-year plan is going on. So once you go to war, whether like if somehow France attacks us now, we were playing a multiplayer game or something, or if you go to war, you want to immediately get rid of Goering as your armaments minister. Put back in somebody else. So probably by that time it would be Todt would be available, and he'll be a good person to put in then. But that is sort of to show that since you have Goering, since he's also concurrently in charge of the Luftwaffe, because here he is Reichswehr Hermann Goering, which is one of the companies under the 4-year plan, or Megacorps, or whatever you want to call it, is just the emphasis on the air power, and it also shows greater air power organization. The reason you have particularly, or the resource gain here +5, is because even if he is not the primary guy running the economy as he is now, he still, through his Reichswehr Hermann Goering, will continue, and like I say, that organization continues throughout the war, continue to produce things. He's still in charge of that. So long as he has enough power to be in charge of something, you get 5% resource bonuses. That's why that's there. It isn't just something, a whim of mine. But now that he's primary, you get a total of 10% because those stack on resource gain. So once he goes away as primary in charge of armaments, he's still in the Air Force, still has Reichswehr Hermann Goering working in the background, if you will. And of course, it helps out with the Air Force light practical decay. We're letting it decay because we're not building any of those units. That's why they're sort of slipping backwards in how efficiently they're going to do it. Hope to make up for that later on and before the war kicks off. But again, after the war is going, got to remember to get rid of him. You don't want him in charge of your economy anymore, but he'll still help you out here. So he's probably the best guy to keep in charge of your Air Force combination. That these aren't bad traits for the Air Force, and you get the resource bonus. When I go in and organize up these kind of things, head of security, that was a standard thing in standard Hearts of Iron. I would not have made that choice, but since he was there and he has good bonuses, I use them in playing through it, and I figured players would be upset if I removed him from that choice. So that's why he's still there. And there's not necessarily a good other place for him to go, but he's very important to Germany. And I sort of have a similar but different thing for Hearts of Iron 4 that I'd like to introduce like this, that has different slots for these types of things. But that's that. So we're going to end that there. So you just a warning to most of you who have been around a long time know that, but warning, leave Goering in. But as soon as that goes away, and there will be it's coded that if you go to war, a big event will come up, and 4-year plan ends. You'll have to manually go in and because I'm not making the choice who you want to replace him with, you can manually go in and get rid of Goering, or just sometime after 1940 it will end. Naturally, you'll want to replace him. So since we're probably going to go after 1940 in peace, we'll probably have to manually replace him at that time, but by that time Todt will be around and he'll help with the economy. So thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate all of you who do. I'm still surprised at how many are interested in watching me play. Thanks for liking the videos. It does really help. And of course, also really helps is comments, questions, suggestions, ideas. Both help visibility with the channel and just help me play better. Thanks so much. See you next time.